Welcome back. Moments ago, the House approved $81 billion in hurricane and wildfire relief on a 252 to 168 vote. The Senate is planning on voting on the package in the new year. It is the biggest round of funding for the 2017 natural disasters, but the governor of Puerto Rico is worried the money won't get to his devastated territory.
There needs to be some language that specifies how some of these resources go to Puerto Rico. Otherwise, if it's just allocation into different buckets, we are competing against Texas. We are competing with Florida. We are competing with California. Big states with a lot of representation, and it puts Puerto Rico in a significant disadvantage.
And that is not the only reason the governor is angry with the federal government these days. He says the newly passed GOP tax bill is going to hit Puerto Rico's already devastated economy especially hard. And he's planning to make Republicans pay at the ballot box. He says he'll organize Puerto Ricans living on the mainland to vote against Republicans in 2018. Joining me now from Capitol Hill is the governor of Puerto Rico, Rossello. Governor, thank you very much for joining us. You're talking about mobilizing Latino voters because you say this tax bill is going to hurt the island of Puerto Rico. Who will you be targeting in 2018?
Well, we're going to be working on that. Right now, we're going to do an evaluation of all of the congressmen and congresswomen that have pledged support towards the people of Puerto Rico. And in the time to take action, they have reneged on that word. So there is still time to work. We want to do this, of course, in a non-political fashion, but we have to recognize that our voice, we're second-class citizens. We don't have representation, but we do have 5.3 million Puerto Ricans in the United States, and we want to organize them to make sure that our voice is heard.
Part of your concern is that companies currently operating in Puerto Rico are going to move back to the U.S. because of a tax loophole that was closed or a tax oddity that was closed for Puerto Rico. Marco Rubio says that's not the case. He's taking issue with your remarks, and you guys have been in a bit of a Twitter spat. Are you planning on targeting Marco Rubio?
No, what I said is I was disappointed with Senator Rubio's action with this vote. He understood the situation in Puerto Rico, and it very clearly hurts the people of Puerto Rico. Let me just put it into context. Puerto Rico is part of the United States, yet it is being considered as a foreign country in this tax reform. Therefore, the tax that's being added to other foreign countries, the intangible tax, the base erosion tax, is going to be added to Puerto Rico. So you're going to have a new tax that you didn't have before. Of course, it's going to hurt and hamper our capacity to grow, and it's going to limit keeping some of those stakeholders in Puerto Rico.
What about Congressman Curbelo? Targeting him?
Right now, we're working. Some of them have said that they're going to target other vehicles. We're going to see that. Of course, we're going to be very vigilant about the actions. We're hopeful that there are other vehicles where they can fix what was done. And again, this is not something that comes out of the blue. For the last year, Congress has had a policy, leadership in Congress has had a policy in Puerto Rico, which is to establish an oversight board to help grow the economy and to sustain our fiscal situation in Puerto Rico. They established what was a roadmap saying that in future tax reform negotiations, Puerto Rico had to be considered because it was always sidelined. They established that jobs created in Puerto Rico are jobs created in the United States, and that based on the situation, fiscal situation in Puerto Rico, other incentives should be given. Now, this was before the discussion in tax reform, and all of those 3 points were completely neglected when this process ensued. So we're hopeful that there's going to be some changes. We're looking forward to the supplemental. Maybe some of that can get fixed there, but certainly there needs to be some action. In the meantime, we're going to get organized, and we're going to have a group of people, Puerto Ricans, Latinos, and just American citizens that are tired of seeing other citizens being treated as second-class citizens, making their way, making their voices heard, and making changes here in Congress.
Do you think it's time for Puerto Rico to have congressional representation?
Of course it is. If there was one time in our history where we can see what it means to be a colonial territory versus what it means to be a state, right now is that time. We've been working on this for the past 4 months, saying how devastating this tax reform would be on Puerto Rico if we are treated as a foreign country. Many of the congressmen and senators have heard it, yet nothing was done about it. The main reason, we don't have political power in Congress. We don't have equal and federal programs, and until we show that we can muster some muscle in some other jurisdictions, or until, the United States call upon what I think it's a moral imperative to finalize a colonialism in the 21st century, transition out of that and make Puerto Rico a state which has been favored by Puerto Ricans twice in the past 5 years, then we will be with this lingering dilemma.
Governor, you embraced the president in his immediate reaction to the disaster in Puerto Rico. Are you regretting the way that you interacted with him today?
No, I do not. As governor, my job is to call strikes when I see them and to call balls when I see them as well. And the president, as I've stated and I reiterate, was very responsive to all of our petitions in the onset. And as I stated, he was responsive, but there was a lot to do still. And there is still a lot to do in Puerto Rico.
Is he still responsive?
I'm sorry?
Is he still responsive?
Yeah, we've been working with the White House on some of the things, but certainly a lot more has to be done in Puerto Rico. These decisions in Congress are going to be critical. They define our economic baseline towards the future with the tax reform. They define how many resources we get to rebuild a new and better Puerto Rico so that it's resilient to these sorts of storms. And of course, the speed and the urgency of the recovery is also critical, because as days go by and we don't get materials to rebuild our energy grid, for example, it is an additional day where our economy stumbles and where we don't have